Everyone's obsessed with raised beds these days. Lumber, screws, liners, imported soil mixes. What started as a simple way to grow food has become an expensive project. But during World War II, when materials were scarce and people had to grow victory gardens on a tight budget, gardeners developed a technique that outperformed raised beds without spending a cent. It's called the soil wall system, and it's one of the most effective, overlooked methods for improving drainage, moisture retention, and soil fertility. This trick doesn't just grow food, it builds living soil structure right where it stands. Raised beds were a luxury during wartime, but necessity bred smarter soil design. During the 1940s, steel and lumber were diverted to the war effort. Gardeners couldn't afford to frame their gardens, yet they still needed fertile, workable soil. Instead of boxing in their gardens, they learned to sculpt the soil itself. They shaped the earth into self-contained mounds or long ridges, with firm raised borders called soil walls. These acted like natural retaining barriers, controlling runoff and improving aeration without wood or metal. The principle was simple: use what's under your feet, not what's sold at the hardware store. This method created the same benefits as raised beds: warmer soil, better drainage, and easier planting. But with an added advantage: everything stayed connected to the native ground ecosystem. Worms, microbes, and fungi weren't cut off by wooden sides or plastic barriers. Nutrient cycles stayed intact, which is quite a remarkable feature. And because the materials came straight from the garden itself, there was no cost and no dependency on external inputs. It's a self-sustaining method, really. The key to the soil wall trick is how you shape and compact the sides. This process ensures stability and durability, which is essential for maintaining the structure. The foundation of this system starts with loosening the soil in the growing area about 6 to 8 inches deep, either with a broad fork spade or hoe. Once the area is loosened, the soil from the paths is thrown up toward the bed area, creating a central ridge roughly 2 feet wide and 6 to 10 inches high. The soil from the outer edges is packed and shaped into sloped walls on either side of the ridge. Those compacted walls are what make the system work. They act as natural barriers that hold moisture in while preventing erosion. Unlike standard raised beds that use wood to confine soil, these compacted walls breathe. Their slight slope sheds excess rain, but still allows deep infiltration when watered. The trick is to firm the outer edges enough to resist crumbling while keeping the core loose and friable for roots. It's a balance of structure and softness. Over time, those walls bake in the sun and form a natural crust that seals the edges just enough to prevent drying, yet never cuts off air exchange. Now, soil walls actually regulate moisture and temperature better than traditional wooden raised beds. You know, one of the biggest complaints with wooden raised beds is that they dry out quickly. The soil, being elevated and boxed in, just loses water faster from all sides. The World War II soil wall method, well, it solves this by letting the earth insulate itself. Those compacted sides trap moisture right in the central bed, creating a cool, humid zone where roots can really thrive even during those hot spells. During heavy rain, water actually runs gently down the slopes rather than pooling or causing any erosion, you know. Tests carried out by post-war agricultural schools found that soil wall beds retained up to 30% more moisture than conventional raised beds. Gardeners could, well, go longer between waterings, and crops experienced less stress from those fluctuating moisture levels. The structure also stayed stable year after year, with only minor touch-ups each spring. It's quite remarkable, really, how consistency can be achieved with just a bit of regular care. You know, adding organic material during shaping builds long-term fertility. It's a simple yet effective way to ensure that the soil remains rich and productive over time. The World War II gardeners had an insightful understanding that soil was a living organism. When they built their soil walls, they didn't just move dirt, they layered life into it. It's fascinating to think about how they nurtured the very ground to support future growth. As they heaped soil from the paths into the bed, they often mixed in partially rotted manure, straw, or composted leaves. This layering, soil, organic matter, soil, created a slow-release nutrient core that fed crops steadily throughout the season. A practical ratio that still works today is 1 part compost or manure to 3 parts native soil. Spread the compost layer about 2 inches thick in the bed area before shaping your walls. As you build the mound and firm the sides, the compost becomes enclosed in the root zone, protected from the sun and wind. Over time, earthworms pull this material deeper, building permanent fertility. Unlike box beds, which often rely on purchased mixes that degrade over time, soil wall systems get better every year. You can tailor the wall height and width to match your crops and climate. In cooler regions, shallower walls, around 6 inches high, help the soil warm up faster in spring. In hotter or drier climates, it's best to go higher, around 8 to 10 inches, so you can create deeper reservoirs of moisture. The width can vary depending on what you're planting. Use narrow ridges for carrots and lettuce and broader ones for things like tomatoes or squash. For paths, it's best to keep them about a foot wide, and you might want to mulch them with straw, leaves, or even wood chips. This approach not only helps in keeping the weeds down, but also contributes organic matter. As the mulch breaks down, it feeds back into the soil when you reshape the walls next season. Now, if you're working on sloped land, you can contour the soil walls along the natural grade. This technique helps to slow runoff and trap rainfall. The walls act like mini terraces, creating a self-watering system that channels moisture where it's needed most. The best part is how this method rebuilds native soil life instead of isolating it. Unlike raised beds filled with imported soil, the soil wall method keeps your native microorganisms, fungi and insects active. The system encourages deep root penetration, pulling minerals up from below while feeding microbes near the surface. Within a season or two, you'll notice more earthworms, darker soil color and better crumb structure. Because the soil is never sealed off, it naturally self-regulates, draining well in wet weather and holding water during dry spells. Maintenance is simple. Each spring, pull a few inches of fresh compost or old mulch into the top of the bed, reform the sides with soil from the paths, and you're ready to plant again. No boards to rot, no screws to rust, and no money wasted. Just good old living earth doing what it's meant to do. You know, this old trick truly deserves a comeback today. Modern gardening, well, it often overcomplicates what's supposed to be simple, doesn't it? The World War II soil wall method proves that, with just a shovel, a bit of patience, and a good understanding of how soil behaves, you can actually create all the same benefits as raised beds, completely free of charge. You get, honestly, perfect drainage, much better moisture control, and a structure that can last for years, all without breaking your budget or, disconnecting your plants from the living ecosystem below. So, before you spend another pound on lumber or premixed soil, just try building with what you already have. Shape the earth, feed it, and let it hold itself together, just as gardeners once did when their survival truly depended on it. If this guide has helped you rethink your approach to raised beds, do make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor and share this video with other gardeners who want to grow smarter, simpler, and more sustainably. Let's bring back the soil wall method and keep the wisdom of the old gardeners alive in every backyard.